3, 2, 1, and we're live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 15th episode of our live chat. Today is August 20th. It's a lovely Thursday evening, and me, myself, Algirdas Matonizz, aka Matonizz, and my co-host Michael Dingfelder, also known as Ding, are welcoming you for tonight's special edition of 25,000 subscriber celebration on this live chat. So welcome to everyone. Hi Mike, how are you doing? We're gonna wait a couple minutes till everyone's gathering, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun on this live chat. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing pretty good. Congratulations on all of the subscribers. I want to start off with the first question to you, and my question for you is, can you name all 25,000 subscribers?
Almost. I need to double check. I'll do that after live stream. I'll be more prepared for the next one.
Because if you really cared about them, you'd be able to name every single one of them.
I know, exactly. I know 24,999, but I just wanted to double check the pronunciation of one weird Lithuanian name. I know I've got some Lithuanian subscribers as well. So, but for next time, I will have all 25,000. Hopefully by next time it's going to be 100,000.
All kidding aside, congratulations on the subscribers. How long did it take you to get all 25,000?
8 years, maybe something like that.
8 years. Wow.
Maybe longer.
I'm assuming a lot of them have come in the sort of the near term, like sort of close. You've been seeing the gain a bunch of them probably within the past couple of years, right?
Yes. It took me a long time to get to 1,000 subscribers, and then 10,000 subscribers. From 1,000 to 10,000 subscribers, I think it was within a time frame of couple years. And then November, I remember I hit oh no, do not do the poor connection thing. Oh no. Are you back, Mike? You're back?
Okay, I think we're coming. Yeah, I think we're coming back.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
I was just sitting here quietly, just hoping that we would just magically make it back here.
Oh no, it zoomed in again. Each time it does that, it zooms you in.
Oh, it makes me all giant. I'm a giant.
At least the sound quality should be fine. To everyone who's joining in right now, please give us a thumbs up if the audio quality is fine. The gain should be a little bit higher, so you should be able to hear us a little bit louder. But outside of that, let us know if the audio quality is fine. As you can see, you can obviously clearly see Mike's face, especially now since he zoomed in. We're going to wait a couple more minutes for more people to join in. To everyone who's joining in, please do us a solid and give this video a thumbs up, and of course subscribe and hit notification if you haven't already. But today we're going to be just thanking all of you for continuous support and subscribing. This channel reached a milestone of 25,000 subscribers, and there's been a milestone of Patreon, and as a thank you, we're going to be bringing on the educational content back on monthly basis, on a regular basis from my end, and also there's going to be some hopefully additional content that we're working on right now, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that as it gets closer to finished product, just because I've been pretty bad with my deadlines and timelines recently, not because of the lack of the effort, but it's just it's hard to predict sometimes how long these arrangements and etc. take to make it to the final product. But hopefully everyone's been enjoying the journey so far. Feedback is always welcome. We're going to be answering your questions later on in the stream, so if you have any questions, please put them in a chat box. Leave a question mark at the end. If you put it through super chat, that'll be highly appreciated. We'll give those comments or questions priority, but not exclusivity. And we're going to try and get as many questions answered as possible. We're going to run around an hour, and that's going to be the plan for today.
I have a couple questions first.
Oh, okay.
I have a couple questions first.
Okay, we'll give you a priority. I know you didn't go through a super chat, but I'll let you slip this time.
First thing, can you make me smaller?
Right now?
Yeah, is that possible?
Yes. Well, okay. That's yeah.
You make me smaller. I feel uncomfortable with like just towering over you. I know I could beat you in an arm wrestling competition, and if we ever got into an MMA fight, uh, I would win.
Okay, just because you're asking, I'm hoping that everyone is not gonna mind this little adjustment on the screen. So give me a second. I'll adjust your screen. But as you can see, I'm playing this on the go. Apologies. That's
okay.
interesting.
They've been with you for this long. They'll stick around through this little change. But the second question I have for you is, have you had a chance to relax after the Vaughan Williams release? I know you were putting in just tons and tons of hours in time
6
getting
weeks.
that taken care
Six.
of.
Let's make it precise. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of close to full-time work. So. For those who might not understand and for those who have not seen the latest big work, the latest big arrangement by Drew Fennell that we published on the channel, please check it out. It was published on Monday. It's an awesome suite by Vaughan Williams. It's an English folk song suite. It contains free movements. And I feel that the arrangement is one of the best that so far came from Drew. But just for those who might not be aware of what the process is from the beginning to the end. So it obviously starts with arranging. Now arranging a 10-minute work like this from a full band to an 8-piece by itself is a very consuming process which takes weeks. Now normally a lot of arrangers and composers, if you think about it, how many of these long 10-minute works do they produce within a year? So not that many, and we've been producing those on a monthly basis, so it's a lot of work, and we have to do it reasonably fast. And Drew is fantastic at arranging and figuring out what works, because obviously he's so familiar with brass instruments and also the players he is working with. So we have to get the arrangement done pretty quickly, and then obviously once the parts are out, we need to learn how to play the music. So there's time spent on practicing, and then obviously making sure that the recordings are good. So we start by establishing tracks from the top part. So in this case it will be Drew, because he's very specific with how he wants the phrasing, articulation, dynamics, and all that kind of stuff done, and we have to copycat him, because otherwise the recording is not going to match. So people have been asking me, how do I make this work and how do I match it so well? So it's a process. You have to we record obviously live performance is not an option at the moment, so we do everything in order to match with the click track. We need to establish click track, so it's a lengthy process, but we're gonna go and do way more of these works. We have already arranged 8 more new works that wait to be recorded, and the two upcoming works will be Shepherd's Hay by Percy Granger and one and only Ruslan and Ludmila. It's funny because I know this very well, and we were joking. I was joking with Drew, and we always make up random names like Ivan and Diana or something like that. So I was about to. It took me a second just to make sure I'm not messing this in my head. But I'm seeing more people join in. I'm seeing some.
Do I get to take part in the Shepherd's Hay?
Yes.
That's one of my faves too. We should do the Shepherd's Hay. I remember the old piece of music, the band tune that on one side it had Shepherd's Hay, and then on the other side it had just a fantastic arrangement of Irish tune from County Derry.
Yeah.
Man, he should do like the double. We should do like a double thing: Irish tune from County Derry and the Shepherd's Hay.
Potentially could be next, but we already prepared. The arrangement is out. I just haven't sent the parts yet, and he already set up a click track. But those two will be the and Flower duet. That's I'm giving some spoilers, but that is going to be a piano plus duet.
If we do Irish tune, I get the euphonium solos. You always get the limelight, and you always get all the glory. I don't care about the glory. I just love playing
Oh, you love
the
playing
the beautiful melodies. I know you love the glory and all that stuff. I don't really care
So
for the glory.
you know what?
but-
I'll let you do the audio recording. I'll put my video on top over you.
That's what I always.
If you
That's
don't
what I'm always worried. It's like,
Worried.
is it actually me playing, or did Al just record the thing himself?
Record
when
over
he's
top.
putting
No,
it up?
I don't do that. So I'm seeing some questions. I'm seeing people tune in. We're gonna answer as many questions as possible. Please leave a question mark at the end if you like your question answered. Give this video a thumbs up. We're gonna dig in the question shortly as I see more people tuning in. But I'm seeing some nice questions. So please keep those going, and we'll get back to you once we hit the questions.
Tell them to make sure that people stick around for the giveaway.
Okay.
Later,
Oh,
too.
yeah. So we're gonna be doing another giveaway in Dining with Ding segment. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. You're gonna get a great scale curriculum book, obviously written by yours truly. But stick around for that. And with that being said, there's a rumor that all the treats and all the candy send Ding to a dentist. So are the rumors true or not? I've heard that eating all the cinnamon rolls, all the granola bars, and all the chocolate chip cookies sent Michael to dentist.
I went to the dentist yesterday for my twice a year checkup. Still no issues whatsoever. Never had a cavity in my entire life. You know, I'm not a big. I say this all the time. My wife is a big sweets person. She loves the sweets. But me, I'm not a big sweets fan. Probably the only time I have a treat is when I'm on this live stream with you. But I'm not a big sweets person. So never had a cavity in my life. I'm keeping the streak going, cavity free.
Good for you. I probably never told you, but there's not that many things that I'm really like afraid of. Some people are afraid of spiders. Some people are afraid of. I'm paranoid about dentists. I'm telling you. So let me give you a little bit of heads up for where I'm coming from. So for those who might not be familiar with my upbringing, I'm from Lithuania. So at the time when I was a kid, there was no painkillers and no nice little procedures how to fix your cavities and all that kind of stuff. So when you would go to dentist as a kid, they would take this drill that would have the sound of like I don't know, a sports bike, like the scary. Imagine a kid, a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old kid sitting that, and that thing goes like. And they just drill that thing without any numbing, without any painkillers or any of hitting your nerves, all that kind of stuff. And as soon as you hit your nerves, you just jump in your chair and you go, just hold on, son, just it'll be fine. So I have the worst fear of dentists. I don't have clear memories of a lot of situations from as far away from as I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old. I can clearly remember all the dentist appointments I was going to as a kid. So I know it's not a rational thing to think about that, but I'm really afraid of dentists. That's like the worst.
I was sitting in the chair yesterday, and the technician was chipping away and polishing and doing what the technician does, and I almost fell asleep. It was like very soothing, and I literally almost fell asleep in the chair there. So thankfully, I don't have that. I don't have that.
If I told you when was the last time I went to dentist, you would think I'm crazy. But I'm not gonna share that because I know you go twice, and for a brass player, having your teeth. I make sure I eat. I don't eat much sugar or anything like that. Or brush my teeth. And pray to God, nothing bad happens. That's my prevention for all the dental problems. With that being said, we broke through some ice now. Again, thanks to everyone who subscribed. Let's dig into some of the questions. You ready for some questions, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna start off with the questions from our Patreons, and the first one is from Ellen. Says, don't really want to take my instrument to repair shop, but one of my first euphonium valves is stuck. I have to put valve oil to switch my springs, and it's stuck. I can push it down, but it won't spring back up. I don't suppose you have any suggestions. And later on, she updated that she decided to give a euphonium a bath, and it started moving a little bit better. But that's one of the things I wanted to address, because this summer I had extraordinary amount of valve issues myself. And now obviously there's certain preventative measures, like cleaning your euphonium, cleaning your valves on a regular basis. So people know that normally if it gets a little bit sticky, you just put some oil. Now what I don't see often being done is wiping the valve clean and just washing it before re-oiling it, because there's a lot of dirt and etc. So that's one thing you should be doing. What I started doing recently, and I noticed that my valves stay way cleaner, and that's something that has been recommended to me in a repair shop. Even when I don't perform nowadays, I oil my valves every single day. I start oiling them every single day just because oil washes off all the dirt, and I did notice a significant improvement. So I've never been a very consistent oiler, if that's even a word for my valves. It's because I normally do it when it starts getting a little bit sticky, but I started doing that every single day, and it's actually staying way cleaner at this point. Now, one thing that happened with free times with two euphoniums on two different occasions, I got to the point where my valve was not sticky, but it got stuck. And the weather, if you have very hot summers, it can bend the valve inside the tube. So if that happens, normally if you start getting your valve to a point where it's stuck, it's not sticky, but it's stuck, it's not a spring problem. It's either a dirt problem, a swelling problem, or your valve is bent. So two ways, two things that you can do before taking it to repair shop if you don't want to have the hassle and expense for a repair shop. Obviously, clean the valve. If you can take it out, if you cannot take it out, you don't have an option. But if you can take it out, clean the valve. If it's still a little bit sticky and you notice that humidity levels are high, and that it's very hot, and maybe you don't have AC in your house or apartment, what I recommend doing is, and might sound ridiculous, but put your valve in a freezer. Just put it there for 5 minutes. It will shrink down the metal a little bit, and at that point, put it back in, oil it. If it does not move, and if it's still getting stuck, you need to take it to repair shop. There's just not that many other solutions outside of washing it, and there's a good chance. The problem with some of the euphoniums, and different brands approach it differently, some of them leave less space between the valve and the tube itself for sound purpose and the smoothness of the movement, that as soon as you start hitting different weathers and humidity, those valves become a nightmare. And the euphoniums that I use fall into that category. And I know Yamaha is not an exception. That's the one that you use. So those would be my advices. Now, I had to take it to a repair shop, and they found that I didn't throw my euphonium. There was no bumps, no nothing. That was just me practicing in my home. They found that the tubes, the valve in both the tubes and two different instruments, both were bent. And the only explanation was the heat and the humidity actually bent the valve inside. So we had to shave off a little bit of a valve. So that's a procedure that is pretty standard. For two euphoniums, it cost me $80. So that's by American standards, that's not necessarily a big expense for two instruments, but that could be expensive, especially if you're a kid and you're a school player. You might not have a budget. So those would be the measures I would take before necessarily going to the store. But is there anything you would like to add, Mike, in terms of the valve preservation and etc.?
Yeah, a few things that I come across, especially either with my instrument or with student instruments that I run across on a day-to-day basis. When I think about the question, a couple things that come to my mind is the spring and also gunk. So you could oil and oil away, but gunk could just have just a terrible consequence on the function of the instrument. especially the gunk or debris that is on the valve itself and down at the bottom of the valve. Down at the bottom of the valve, you have that screw cap that's down there, and you'll be surprised how much of that debris and gunk will collect in there, and quite quickly as well. And that could cause a big problem. You would be amazed at, you oil your valves and you just expect it to work, and then nothing is working. And then if you unscrew that cap there and you get in there and really dig out and clean the debris and the gunk that's in there, and then just magically it'll start to really improve. That is one thing that's very common that could solve a lot of issues. You mentioned too about wiping your valve down. I do that anytime I'm giving sort of a good clean, or every few weeks I'll wipe my valve down completely, because once again, you'll get it into the not just on the valve itself, but the gunk will start to collect inside of the holes and the openings that are drilled and cut into the valves. So you want to make sure that you get in there and clean all of that stuff out of there. It's very important to do that before you oil your valve again. Another thing that I do as well too that you didn't mention is I actually get either a clarinet swab or a saxophone swab. And what I'll do is I'll take out my whole valve, I'll take out the spring and also the screw cap down at the bottom of the valve, and I will run a clarinet swab or a saxophone swab through there to really get all of the gunk out of the inside of it. I don't give my instrument a bath or clean it that often to that level, but every time I want to sort of maintain and clean some things, especially with my valves, I'll always run a swab through there. It really gets a lot more than what a valve brush would do. It's important to have a valve brush to break that stuff up. And then I always, after I use the valve brush, I like to run the swab through there too, and it gets most of it. You clean all that stuff out and you put the oil in there, then you should be in pretty good shape. If not, you talked about the bending of the valve. There's also corrosion that could build up just naturally on the valve. On the valve as well, but you'd have to take that into a shop and have them remove that corrosion.
And with corrosion, it also matters what kind of material, what kind of steel the valve is built. If it's stainless steel, that's going to be less prone to corrosion. Whereas it depends, and it's not even like the top line euphoniums. All of them use stainless steel. For example, the John Thacker that I have. It actually has stainless steel, and it's a cheaper euphonium than Jupiter XO, which doesn't have stainless steel. So they have different reasonings for that, and etc. But stainless steel will have less tendency for corrosion, and if you don't clean it up, that's one of the scenarios that could happen. Valve oil, now that's another thing to keep in mind. What kind of valve oil? Normally, I don't recommend necessarily mixing even the brands too much, because even if it's synthetic versus non-synthetic oil, they change. They're not same in consistency. So the one that I use is the Hetman Classic. That's the one that I use, and that's the one that I've been recommending. I always use synthetic oil. It does not leave as much gunk. You probably need to oil it a little bit more often. But again, I've been oiling every single day, and these are on Amazon. I'm sure anywhere in Europe you'll probably be able to find this. Don't buy into these. I've seen some crazy overpriced oils which are supposed to, I don't even know, like you oil it once and it's good, but it's one of these bottles are like $30 or something like that, which is crazy. And don't go into that kind of nonsense. This is like 7 or 8. Bucks per tube, and this I've been using this on monthly basis. It probably lasts for like 6 weeks if I oil it every single day. So 6 weeks or something like that. I actually pre-ordered quite a few, but always synthetic. And Hetman is the one I order this Amazon. I think it's coming through Dylan Music or something like that. But that's a good oil. I think that's the one you use as well. Is that correct?
I've used Hetmans in the past. I use Ultra Pure right now.
Mm.
I like them both equally. You have to be careful though too, even with your instrument, depending on the thickness of the oil. You could also have issues with sticking valves if your oil is too thick. So that's why with my Yamaha that I have, I use that Ultra Pure.
It's thinner.
And it's very thin. It's probably as thin as that. I think the first level of the Hetmans. That's the light oil that they have there. I like both equally. Just to wrap up my final thought with Ellen's question, is that also be careful of the spring. It's possible the spring could be damaged and just not have enough power to get the valve going back up. Once again, a technician can look at that. I mean, I wouldn't know myself how good or bad a spring is or how to fix something like that.
Yeah, and the springs, the damaged spring is probably the least likely scenario out of all the ones that I mentioned. What I recommend with springs, if you can invest in the fluoroplastic spring, so it's like a coated spring, those have a better longevity. They move quieter and they have a more buttery type of, they move a little bit smoother when you get it. So they can get a little bit pricey, but they have a good longevity, so it might be worth investing. It's like probably $30 or something like that. But again, spring, if I had to pick on one of those springs, would be least of my concerns.
Right. Yep.
So the second question is coming from Abel. I'm a high school senior and I'm practicing the TMEA audition music. I made region district for the past 3 years. Congratulations on that so far, but the reason I asked the question about breathing is because of C major etude by Gatti. I'm having trouble trying to have enough air to push through each phrase, specifically in the 16th note runs at measure 7 to measure 11. And I believe, looking at the music, as we did a little pre-check at the music, I think Abel is referring to measures 8 and 12 rather, but if I'm correct. But and then pushing into the slurred and staccato 16 notes of measure 12 and 13. Now, for those who are not familiar with these etudes, so a lot of American players might be familiar with this book. It's a very popular etude book, the one that TMEA uses for most part, and TMEA is a big state event and competition for brass players. So the C major Gatti etude, we're not necessarily going to go into the specifics of etude, but rather how to counter those problems. So the first thing that everyone can do immediately is plan out the breaths. Whenever I play a solo especially, and whenever I have time to prepare, I always, if I have longer phrasing, and these etudes is very relevant, I plan carefully my breaths. So and the points that I'm considering when I write down the breaths, I mark in all of them with a pencil. Your best friend right here. So what I'm always considering is how long can I sustain the phrase for? So that will depend on the tempo, on the dynamics, all that kind of stuff. And another point that I'm always considering when I'm figuring out where I'm gonna breathe. If I have multiple options without jeopardizing phrasing or impacting phrasing in a negative way, I'll always try to breathe in the most secure spot. On another or in other words, you have multiple notes where you're gonna breathe before. You don't want to breathe before the highest note ideally, or the most off-centered note. So plan out your breaths, write it down whenever you practice. Be very, very precise with your breathing. You want to practice the breathing just the way you're going to be performing. Now, this is one of the things you can do immediately, but obviously working on your breathing technique and learning how to breathe in quicker. So one of the most important probably most important aspects to master breathing a little bit quicker will be, first of all, getting used to not operating with full tank of air. So here's the deal: whenever you play in these etudes, you're not gonna be having a luxury of taking the full breath for as long as you want to every single time. So you need to learn how to operate within your lung capacity. You want to do breathing exercises. So you want to, within breathing exercises, you want to be doing exercises that allow you to take the fullest breath in and fullest breath out, probably potentially for extended count. So maybe four beats in, 4 out at 60 beats per measure for tempo tracking, then 5 in, 5 out. So these exercises will give you a management ability plus improve your lung capacity. Now for breathing fast, there's two problems that often happen. If everyone has a lung function. So that's a metric, that's a number that consists of a couple of metrics. One of them is how fast you can inhale, how fast you can exhale, what's the total amount of air your lungs can hold, how fast your lungs can transfer oxygen to the bloodstream and get rid of carbon dioxide from bloodstream. Now, the problem that happens, the main muscle which is responsible for breathing is your diaphragm. Just like, and the example I like using just because it's something very easy to relate. If you go to gym, sometimes once in a while you see somebody who just grabs the largest dumbbell and just swings it. Instead of curling, they just swing it because that dumbbell is too heavy. Now the main muscle which is responsible for curling is your bicep. So obviously if you pick the dumbbell which is too heavy, the bicep cannot handle that workload. So you have to use all the accessory muscles like your shoulder and your back and your core in order for you to get that weight up. The same conception works with breathing. Diaphragm is a muscle. It's an involuntary muscle, but it's still a muscle. It can only handle a certain workload. So if you try to breathe in too quick, the accessory muscles come into play. Your chest, your upper body muscles, your chest, your shoulders, your back. So if I was trying to breathe in really fast, you'll notice that my shoulders get up because all the accessory muscles are now engaging. Now we're designed to breathe in through our nose. So nose has a smaller capacity, which naturally slows down how we breathe. Now we always have the secondary mechanism in case we are cold and we've got stuffing in our nose, it's clogged. So we don't want to suffocate because of that. And we have mouth. Now our mouth is not necessarily designed as a primarily breathing and inhaling and exhale mechanism, but that's the one that we're using for our brass playing, and there's a tendency to always overwork it. So what I'm trying to do when I do these long phrases and when I'm trying to take quick breaths, I'm not necessarily trying to breathe in quicker. I'm just realizing that I'm not going to be able to take as much air as I would normally at the start of the etude. So I'm trying to maintain that consistent slow speed, because the harder you work, the less air you'll be taking. It's almost like a drowning person syndrome. When people try to gasp for air, they do this thing and they can barely take any air at all, because you get this almost like a gag reflex where all the upper body muscles are suddenly tightening. So from technique standpoint, whenever you're taking those quicker breaths, don't try to take all the air in the world possible. Try to maintain composure and try to keep that dark, slow, relaxed breath, even if it's a little bit shorter and even if you're not capable of taking your full tank. Now, another thing that is going to help you tremendously, it's very, very important that the quickest, best breath you can take is similar to a pant-like motion. So if you ever see a dog pant, I would recommend trying this out. So that's the motion I'm trying to breathe in on or relate to when I breathe. So it's a very open back of the mouth space. Now it requires for your face to relax. You cannot do a pant with your face squeezed. Now it's kind of counterintuitive, because in order for us to form an embouchure, we have to engage this to some extent, and normally we want to maintain that because of the fear to lose the centering, and we don't want to split the note. Now it's very, very important that during your breath you try to disengage your face just for a fraction and just relax, rely on your instinct for your lips to close and recenter at the right time. So you'll notice that this will allow for your back of the mouth to open up and allow you for a way quicker, way fuller inhale in shorter amount of time. So that would be two technical advices. Now, how do you practice? That's a very important question. You don't want to start practicing that in this etude, because that's a lot to process. It's a lot to think about when you're trying to think of the phrasing dynamics and fingers. That's where exercises like long tones, simple slurs, and etc. These exercises are so simple. you can isolate one technique at a time. For example, breathing and learning how to inhale correctly. So these would be exercises I would be practicing. You're not practicing, well, not exercises. Let me reframe that. You don't want to be practicing long tones, but what you want to be practicing is your inhale, is your control, all of that stuff through long tones. So long tones is a beautiful exercise to practice your inhale timing. So put your metronome on and start with two beats in per 60 beats per minute, then narrow it down to 1 beat, half beat, and try to maintain that controlled, slow, dark inhale, even when the count decreases. So those would be 2 technical advices that I would give you in order to have more control. That even though instinctively you might not feel like you're working and taking as much air as one of these, but trust me, not only you're taking more air, but you're taking it with more control, and you'll be able to control that air. So those would be 2 advices I would give for that etude. Practice that through long tones, and later on try to apply that within an etude with carefully mapped out and planned out breathing. Mike.
Yeah, sure. There's always something that you could do to make this issue better. I have one technique that I use from time to time that you didn't mention. I agree with all of what you're saying about your breath support and proper breathing and mapping and planning out the breaths. It's very important. Improper breath control and improper breathing can really make a lot go wrong in a piece of music. And as I'm looking at this section specifically in the music to get specifically to the person's question, was it Abel?
Yes,
Abel's question.
Abel. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those techniques. I know Abel wants to compete in this competition. I'm not quite sure of the time frame on when things need to be taken care of or submitted or the audition for that. But sometimes these techniques take quite a while to develop, and the Abel might not be able to develop some of these suggestions in that amount of time.
Yes.
So what I think is, and what I tell my students, and I'll do this sometimes myself as well, is to get rid of something, take something out to get a proper breath.
It's a professional talking right there.
I tell my students too that a lot of times they'll want to make sure that they have every single thing included with what they have to do. But if they include everything, sometimes there might be many other things that suffer. Like with Abel, for example, Abel might be trying to get through some of these passages with not enough air, and the tone quality could really suffer. Or there might be range issues without enough air. So a lot of problems could come up. So what I would do is if you can't make it across that passage, especially that I believe it's in measure 13, there's those groupings of 6 16th notes in each one of those groupings. What I would do is, just looking at that phrase, is just remove the first 16th note of whichever group. I mean, you could decide at what point do you get rid of the second grouping's first sound? Do you get rid of the third grouping of 16th notes first sound? That seems like that's the sound that could easily be taken out, and instead put a breath in there, or a sneak breath, or something like that, to try to make it through the passage without making anything else go wrong. That would be my suggestion, in addition to what you had said. It's okay to take things out. If you take that one sound out within that measure and you're able to play everything else correctly, then that's a good thing. If you play every single sound, however, you don't have enough air and it affects multiple other sounds, then you're actually making more mistakes by leaving in that sound. So take it out.
And by mistakes, it's not only chipping notes, but it's overall quality as well. That's a great advice. And by the way, that's something that we always do, and that's very common, especially in band playing. Now you don't have the luxury of having a second player or a third player to cover for you. So, but for example, in those sections where we have that, And obviously you want to maintain the phrasing. We would subdivide where we're breathing. That would be one of the options. Obviously not relevant to this, but figured something to bring up. We do that as well, so it's not uncommon. That's actually a great advice. I very much agree with that. Now, the last question that is coming from Patreon is coming from Mike. I worked with everything you gave me in your last message. It was great stuff, and I was on my way to perfecting that part until the world changed. I'm taking my return from a break due to a back problem and work pressures to break some bad habits. I've identified this as too much tension and inconsistency from one note attack to another. The latest thorn in my paw is simple eighth notes from treble clef G above the staff to a fourth lower D, second line from the top treble clef. I'm trying all the variations I can think of, rhythm, tempo, slur, articulation. I think my mouth and tongue just don't start from the same place each time, so I can't repeat this simple fourth cleanly. Any thoughts on how to keep it from getting the best of me? I think this more relaxed and quieter approach, movement-wise, will help me improve my playing. All thoughts appreciated. I hope all is well for you. Thanks in advance, Mike. Okay, so a lot to unpack now. This is a very it's a detailed way of asking question. Now I'm gonna narrow down in case you did not follow everything. It's basically it's about the slur, and we're talking about concert F to C or treble C to D. It's a fourth going down, and that's the slur that Mike is having trouble with achieving cleanly. So there could be couple of problems, and normally when I see these problems, it usually is a problem of coordination. Now, what do I mean by coordination? Normally, I always say that the best and the worst part about playing a brass instrument, that we have these fundamentals that are extremely hard to learn because there's not a lot of visual stuff in our playing. A lot of this kinesthetic is just feeling and understanding. You cannot see what your tongue is doing. You cannot really see what your aperture is doing. So it's a lot about feeling and understanding, and in your brain remembering how your mouth feels, how your air speed is not something you can see as well. So that's the hard part. It's not like a piano player where you can spread your fingers, change combinations, and see if your hand is getting tight, if your fingers are getting too flat. It's a lot of visual elements to string players and piano players. So a lot of our stuff is kinesthetic. Now the upside to that, the fundamentals, once you learn the texture of our pieces, is very easy. So if you get good at fundamentals, everything else will be way easier in comparison to all the piano literature, etc. Now, why am I bringing this up? It's always a coordination between these fundamentals. Your inhale versus exhale. So this is one of the scenarios that could happen. When you inhale, if you're playing that, that's not the right interval, but you get the idea. If that's what you're playing, this is one of the scenarios that could happen. You take an inhale, and there's a suspense. That already takes away a lot of your control. And even if you're getting the top note, you might be missing the bottom note just because you're already losing the control. So you're introducing the gap, suspense, or hesitation. Name it the way you want to name it. But that's one of the things that might happen. Now, we're obviously reading the question, so it's hard to determine which one is the correct answer, but we're going to give you some food for thought here. So another thing that can happen, and this is a more likely option in this specific scenario, is the coordination between air movement. So with inhale and exhale, I want to make sure that whenever I play, there's two types of movement. It's in, out, and nothing in between. The air is always moving, whether it's in or out. As much of that as possible. You'll have way more control and you'll have more leverage with your air. Another coordination will be your lips closing as you're from inhale to exhale. So in order for you to inhale, your aperture will have to open up. And your lips will have to close in order for your lips to buzz. So if you don't coordinate your exhale to inhale properly, or in other words, lose centering, even if, again, you hit that top note on open, which is your treble clef G, or your concert pitch F, you might not get that clean slur just because your centering is a little bit off. And it's easier to get away with bad centering on euphonium just because our centering gap is wider than, for example, French horn. If you have a bad centering on French horn to begin with, you're not even going to hit the first note to begin with, or might not even get a sound. With euphonium, you can get away with it, but you're not going to have control. In this case, a clean slur. Now, a third thing, which a lot of people always often mislook, is your valve movement. You might notice, you might not even realize, but you might be doing this, and you might be moving your valve very slowly. So make sure when you do that slur that your valves are moving very precisely. So it's a quick movement. Even if you're playing slow, it's a quick movement, no hesitation, and it's moving at the same time as you're about to change pitch. Now, one more thing is your airspeed. Now you'll notice when you go to the higher register, the resistance increases. We want to maintain with euphonium, unlike trombone, for example. Trombone, the more you drive through, the more power. It equals to power and more volume. With euphonium, it often equals to chip note. It's a very, very subtle instrument. You have to move your air very carefully, especially in the top register. You cannot just drive your air through and expect a nice, clean, centered slur. So euphonium, I always tell, when I play, I try to get my playing as close to airstream. Those two, the way I feel it, the sensation are so close, and I can make it with way more tension, but it does not have to be, and in fact, it shouldn't be. So that trick part is maintaining that same consistent, easy, relaxed airstream while at the same time enduring that resistance for buzzing and vibrating lips. So you want to make sure that you're maintaining a clean free buzz. So that's why sometimes, and Mike mentioned, playing quieter might seem like an easier thing to do, because then you start moving a little bit of a more relaxed, appropriate airstream. But it does not in fact have anything to do with dynamics. It's more to do with you just relaxing your airstream. So those would be the potential problems. One of them is causing you, or a combination of those causing the problem. Now, what's the solution? I would start practicing a different, another thing that I forgot to mention, listening for interval. And I know Mike will want to elaborate on that, so I'm not going to talk about that. But the solution would be start on that G and start chromatically going downwards. Interval starting with minor second, minor third, major third, up until you reach the third. Get the smaller intervals clean, and you'll notice you'll start to understand the airstream and the centering a little bit better. Now, obviously, in overall flexibility context, that will be practicing general flexibility exercises, ideally probably in the lower register as well, to make sure you're avoiding any damage or unnecessary fatigue to your lips. But in that particular scenario, make sure you not only hear that interval, but you can feel it. Your mouth remembers how that sensation is supposed to feel, and you build that by starting with a minor second and all the way to the fourth, to the point where you can do it smoothly. And the more you do it, the more repetition you put in there cleanly, the more it will become something that your brain can relate to, and more of it will become a sensation rather than a process that you have to really think about it. And one more thing that I forgot is making sure that you don't hesitate with your tongue. So you don't want to articulate slowly. Articulate that top note clean and quick. Get your tongue out of the way as quick as possible. So those would be a couple of suggestions and couple of things to think about. It will be very hard to give you a specific answer without seeing you play. Mike, if you wanna send an example and us to break it down on one of these live streams, so we would be more than happy to do that. But other Mike, would you like to give Mike some
Yeah, sure.
advice?
You pretty much said my suggestion, but just to follow up a little bit with that. Sometimes when you have a certain type of interval, the interval just might be too great. There just might be too much space that is in between certain sounds where certain things could go wrong, or you could feel uncomfortable playing larger intervals. But that technique in that example of the exercise is exactly what I was going to say. Start off on that G above the staff and work your way down chromatically. You know, I would often go back to that G. So I would go G and then an F sharp, G and then an F, and then so on, always going back up to that G and going downward. You can do it in multiple ways as well too. I might do a string of G's to F sharps, G, F sharp, G, F sharp, G, back and forth. Then I might start to go downwards and do strings of even more of them together, and even get to a point where I'm just playing one sound and then the next lowest, and then back up, and then the next lowest down, and then back up. And what that does is it really trains what you're doing, especially with all the stuff that you had mentioned in the follow-up to me speaking. It gives you an opportunity to fine-tune and work on those things that you had mentioned through all of those repetitions as you do it. And the point that I'm trying to bring across with this is that you want to start small. It's easy to get small intervals going and have the control you need to get those to come out. Once you feel comfortable with that, then you expand and you make that interval harder to do. And as you train yourself and as you do that activity, you might find if you do it quite a bit, you'll start to improve with the issue that you're having.
Yeah, and not only quite a bit, but do it correctly. The only repetition, you can get really good at doing things wrong. You'd be surprised.
Sure.
And that's normally the biggest problem with advanced students. It's often not necessarily about introducing new habits. It's getting rid of bad habits they developed throughout the years. So make sure you get those clean repetitions. Don't be so and I know sometimes you don't have the luxury of taking 3 or 4 months to get that interval. If you need to perform in a band concert, you'll just have to roll with whatever you have to do. But the more clean, good repetitions you put in, those are the ones that count. When you go to practice session, don't be preoccupied about just getting the interval. Get it with good technique. With whatever your knowledge and your perception and your understanding of good technique is, get it with good technique at least once. Then you move on to the next interval. Try to achieve that perfect technique, or as perfect technique as you can, at least once per day. Your brain is a fascinating thing. You'll remember. You'll go to bed, you'll fall asleep. It's almost like a save button. You wake up and you'll notice that next day, something that took you so long to think about and process is suddenly way quicker and more easy to relate to. So those would be the advices. Again, it's hard to give a very specific answer without seeing you play. If you'd like to send us a video of that, we would be happy to break it down on one of these live streams. But for now, hopefully it gives you some food for thought. With that being said, I've noticed that Mike started slurring his words. That means his brain power is decreasing, running out of sugar. And I think it's time for...
I'm ready to dine, yes.
Alrighty. So for those who are not familiar with our Dining with Ding segment, we're going to move on to your live questions right after this, but for now we're going to do a little giveaway. So Mike has this awkward craving for snacks, usually around 40 to 50 mark of a stream. And
it's your fault, man. You go on those long-winded descriptions of things, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, he's saying some good stuff, but man, I am hungry. And then often I'm like, man, I am getting sleepy. I need something to eat.
At what point, like, what's the time frame where you just shut down and stop hearing what I say and just start talking with yourself in your head? What was the time where you're like, blah 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 blah, I'm so hungry?
About 3 minutes into the stream.
But with that being said, Mike, do you want to break down the rules of our little quiz / giveaway?
Sure, dining with Ding, dining with me. I always have a treat. It's either a baked good or some candy. And today I will just give you a hint, just straight up. It is a type of candy. So
Okay.
that's the first thing. So all you need to do is just put your guess in the chat box there, and whoever is the first person to get it correct wins a prize from Algertis.
And the prize is going to be a scale curriculum book, which you're going to receive if you guess it correctly. So we're going to wait because the stream is behind probably like 15 or 20 seconds. I'm going to wait a couple of seconds. Oh, I'm already seeing some of guesses. Jolly Ranchers, whatever that is.
I'll give a better hint here too.
But just a second before you give a hint, Tyler, you know what? Let them just roll with it, because I'm seeing somebody just going straight through like multiple, like the whole list of like candies. We need to think of a new rule where you have like 2 guesses per.
Yeah, maybe like one guess or 1 or 2 guesses. If you don't get it, you're out.
Yeah. So we're introducing. So let's introduce a new rule. So wait, we're gonna give 1 guess and you're out. And now this is not gonna.
Did someone get it right yet?
I don't think so.
You can't spring rules on them once we go. It has to be.
But no. But what I'm gonna do is we're changing the rules, so it starts right now, not as of 20 seconds ago. So just a second before you start putting all the guesses, make sure you don't just name the list of whatever candies you know. Wait up until you believe you know the answer. So we're gonna give more hints as we go along. So before you start just listing all the candies in the world, so let me read all the attempts. And I know somebody already made it. Now you can do one more attempt, because we introduced this new rule midway stream, so it's okay. It's on us, but just keep in mind from now on it's 1 guess per person. So I'm seeing Jolly Ranchers.
If Tyler had that many guesses, you should just give it to Tyler, because Tyler is obviously in it to win it.
And I know. Okay, Jolly Ranchers, that's a no. Is that correct? No. Kit Kat.
No.
Payday.
No.
What kind of candy is a payday?
It's a peanut bar thing.
Okay.
You don't know. I tried educating you in American candies.
Now, Flame 101 asks, how do you increase your tone as well? Is it a hard candy or a chocolate? I like the combo of questions. A Reese's, a Reese's, that's not a Reese's. Pog, is that a candy?
I don't even know what that is. A
Pog?
Yeah. Not sure what that is, but no, it's not that.
Lifesavers? I don't even know what that is. Twix?
No. These are all great guesses, though.
Okay. So another hint. And before you start putting all the guesses, just think about this. We're going to have hints. Once you're sure, put your guess. 1 guess per person.
This candy is a very colorful mix. Has a lot of different festive colors in there.
Does it have pink?
It does not in this version. I think they make maybe one around the Easter holiday that has some like light pink and stuff like that, but not.
Does
not
it have teal?
Once again, in the Easter holiday one that they put out of these, I believe they do, but not in this one.
Okay, so what's so festive about those candies you're eating? That's the question I have.
I could give another hint. Do you want to give me another hint?
No. Okay, so Tyler is already, because Tyler said Skittles and Jelly Beans. So those 2 tries, Tyler. I think we appreciate the amount of guesses, but at this point, Tyler, I think is gonna. You know what? Let's just see how that goes.
I kind of want Tyler to win it. I want him to. I want Tyler to win it. I'm gonna give Tyler. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I'm assuming a boy, but I'm gonna give him 2 more guesses just because it's dining with Ding and I'm in charge.
Okay. Well, jawbreaker.
This candy.
Jawbreaker. Not a jawbreaker.
No. This candy has a shell to it.
Is it Skittles?
It is not Skittles. That's a very good guess.
I've seen 4 Skittles guesses already. Okay, 4 Skittle guesses. That's not Skittles. Is it?
This is a tough one. People are having a hard time with this today. Normally it goes pretty quick. I'll give another hint. This will pretty much give it away. This candy can have many different things inside of it, from pretzel bits to peanut butter to peanuts to plain to caramel, all sorts of things.
Now, do you want to have specific one, or how? Do you see the chat box? Mike, can you see the chat box?
Why don't we do 2 winners? Why don't we pick the first person that said M&Ms, because that's what it is.
Okay.
But I have a certain type of M&M with something inside of it. So whoever is the first person to guess what kind of M&M specifically it is will get another prize.
Okay, that's how it is. So Jared Axton gets the first copy of the Scale Curriculum book. Congratulations to Jared Axton. Please send me an email to euphonium.legends@gmail.com to claim your prize. It's going to be put in the description box, but again, it's euphonium.legends@gmail.com, and I'll send you your prize. And Tyler.
Nope, it's not Tyler's.
Oh, no.
Correct. He said peanut butter. That is not correct. It's very close though.
But then.
Did he come out? Did he do a follow up right after?
Yeah.
Tyler got it. Yeah, Tyler.
You've got a bias for Tyler. Okay.
Tyler. Oh, he was kidding. I love the determination. Tyler just kept going and going and going. Good for Tyler. It is peanut M&Ms.
Okay, let me see. I'm seeing SJ Kyle saying I guessed it first. I might have missed it. Let me just rewind to make sure.
Double check.
To make sure.
You can check while I dine.
So who's the first one to say M&Ms? No, it's Jared. Jared said M&Ms first, and then peanuts. The peanut edition was by Tyler. Yeah, I think SJ Kyle was a second person to guess that. I believe that's what I'm seeing at the chat. Alrighty, congratulations to Jared Axton and Tyler. Please both email me to euphonium at euphonium.legends@gmail.com. Again, that's euphonium.legends@gmail.com to claim your prizes. And congratulations, thanks for playing. And with that in mind, let's dig into your live question, friends. So if you have any questions, put a question mark. Well, I just realized we are hitting 1 hour mark, so we're always seem to end up coming a little late to these. But let's go through some questions. Okay. I'm seeing some love from Portugal. Love you back, Portugal.
Maybe there's no questions, and we won't have to answer any other one.
What is the best way? Troy is asking, what is the best way to practice and extend your pedal range? Do you want me to lead on this one, or do you want to, now that you powered up? I feel like I need some.
No, I would just say same thing for the with Mike's issue. I like to do things chromatically, especially if you're doing with the pedal tones. I like doing chromatic exercises, going down by half steps in a similar fashion in the pedal register. That would be the one thing that I enjoy the most. You can go ahead. I'm going to keep eating M&Ms.
Now, the thing that the way I approach a lot of this, I always, it's very important to understand what exercises and how to practice. But I feel that we're kind of overwhelmed with the exercises. There's so much of them, and it's not hard to find an exercise to practice your flexibility, pedal range, you name it. What I am always more bothered is you should be asking yourself, why are you having that problem? What is causing you the problem? That will not only suggest the best exercise, but also will give you the quickest solution is identifying the problem. So let me tell you 2 things that happen in the pedal register, or 2 problems, 2 most likely problems. So at the bottom, the pedal range versus super high register, it might not feel like those 2 relate in the problems. that you face, but they actually present identical problems, just on the opposite side of a spectrum. So it's always the aperture problem and the airspeed problem. Now, the problem that happens at the top, at your highest register, we tend to, because the pressure is so high from lips vibrating so fast, we tend to over engage our face and shut our aperture with stopping the airflow at all, instead of just using faster air and keeping and maintaining a controlled aperture space. We tend to over squeeze. Now at the bottom, the problem is that the tension is so low and the airspeed is so slow that we tend to keep this so loose and so open, the lips cannot vibrate. There's a certain space. You see, I can still kind of vibrate with this kind of space, but that's not a controlled, not a good space to have. I want to maintain this kind of space at the bottom, a little bit more controlled space, while maintaining that low tension. So airspeed, which is normally very slow at the bottom, so you're thinking of uncomfortably slow airspeed, very warm, very slow airspeed. So those are two problems that are most likely you're going to be seeing at the bottom. Not being able of blowing slow enough air and maintaining some control of the aperture. So you want to keep your face loose, but at the same time you don't want to open up your aperture too much to the point where you're getting this where it's not even vibrating. So you want to keep this loose, but control in the space of your aperture. Now, chromatically, how to figure this out and how to learn how to control, that's something that would be closer to what Mike is telling us. Find the right exercise. So chromatic scales, then gradually increasing your intervals to where it becomes a slower exercise would be a great solution. But understand what you're looking for. You're looking for control in your aperture, so not over opening your space, and decreasing the airspeed, slowing it down. Think of warm air, or in other words, slow air. Those are two things you're going to be looking within that exercise. So, Mike, anything else you'd like to add? Or?
Yeah. Just one more thing as you were talking. Also, too, when you're working down into your pedal range, it's a good idea to it's just for lack of better words, just have a tuner with you. There's your intonation down there could be a real struggle, because playing so low and dipping down into that lowest of registers, you could bend the pitch quite a bit by just doing just a little bit of movement here and there. So if you want to play into that pedal range and be in tune, make sure you have a tuner there just to double check to make sure that you're centering and you're getting those pitches with correct intonation. You know, there's a lot of people that can get down into those lower sounds, but are you actually playing those sounds? Are you actually in tune as well? So until you start to really train your ear to develop that, use that tuner to help you, because that extreme low register, you could bend pitch very easily and quite a bit, either higher or lower.
So the same Tyler, the Peanut M&M Tyler, have a question saying, how do I get better at reading notes and getting beautiful sounds? And he's saying that, please answer my question. I'm new to this and really want to get better. And also, how did you get into euphonium and how much you practice? So here's first of all, good questions. The problem, it is very, very broad. So the question itself is a little bit flawed. Like, getting a good sound, it's not as obvious as do this and you get a better sound. So all those basics, fundamentals that we've been talking through, your airspeed, your strengthening your facial muscles, controlling your aperture, all of them will impact your ability to play with beautiful sound. So normally you want to have a good, relaxed airflow, minimal engagement in your embouchure. Now, by minimal, I don't mean keep your lips completely loose, but you want to make sure that you're creating free buzz with a minimal amount of tension. So my free buzz, Those two are very similar. So when you create the free buzz like that, you'll be able to replicate that buzz in your instrument. That will give you control, that will give you resonance to your tone. So those would be kind of very squeezed answers, but practice your free buzz. That would be a great exercise to improve your tone. Now, since the question is so broad, what I would recommend, Tyler, is go through my educational video playlist. If you're new to the channel, you might not know that originally this channel, the main reason for growth were the educational videos. I made multiple videos breaking down all of these subjects in detail. Go through my educational video playlist. You'll be able to find so many advices on tone, register, fingers, articulation, you name it. So those would be a better sources up until you have a bit more specific questions. Mike, you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. Just to give a couple of things that I went through whenever I was learning music, and sort of the way I teach it a little bit now. He mentioned about reading the pitches and reading the sounds. Sometimes that's a very tough thing to do, especially for younger people. I'm not sure how old Tyler is or anything, but just speaking in general, for younger people, just knowing what sound to play is tough sometimes. There's many different resources online to go to, and especially certain ones where they have even games and things like that for pitch identification and learning what the pitches of the staff are, whichever clef you might be using and you could also play some games that will put random sounds in front of you and you could guess to see which one it is and things like that. Those are all great. One thing that really helped me, though, is what my private teacher had me do whenever I was in high school. I could read the sounds up until that point, but just a technique that he gave to me that was really helpful is he would have some exercises where I would have to just sit down and I would have to say the pitch letters, the A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs of the piece that I had to play, and I had to say them in time to whatever the tempo was and for the whole piece of music. So not even playing the piece. I mean, often the first thing that I would do would be to sit down and figure out the rhythms of the piece and also the pitch letters. And I would have to say, and he would assign me that, and it would say, he would write down at the top of it, and I would put the metronome on, and I would say all of the letters. And he said, keep doing it until you say all of them correct. If you make a mistake, stop and go back to the beginning and start over again. And he would put various things like, say it 25 times in a row before you stop practicing.
That sounds like me.
say it 50 times in a row, sometimes even 100 times in a row, depending on how long the exercise was. But he would have say, and then whenever he would want me to play it, he would put play. And then oftentimes he would put say and play. So first I would say it and work that out. And then once I said it, I would go and I'd play it. But what I found that was great about this was that it made me a lot more accurate getting my brain to figure everything out first before playing it. Playing is sort of like the secondary activity when I think about that. You have to get your brain figuring it out first, and then you can take what your brain already knows and then put it to the playing. So of my steps that I have of teaching and sometimes learning music, playing is always at the end. I always figure everything else out ahead of time, and then I go and play it. So try doing that. Try getting a small piece of music and working out what the sounds are and say them as you go along instead of playing it. And it could really help you to improve with that note identification, as well as the resources and the games and activities and exercises that you can find online.
Okay, yeah, that guy sounds like me. You know what they say about my teaching? Not fun but effective. So, I normally I'm always like the way I approach it. I might not be probably that might be an upside or downside depending what kind of person you are. Like I'm all about being effective. That's my thing. It's efficiency and how effective. So it never for me. That's the most exciting part is being effective and progressing as quickly and as effectively as possible. Now, for some people, I've noticed a trend that these types of repeat 25 times is a no-go, but just to double that, the fastest, the best, and probably the only way of learning things. Repeat these simple steps. Add one variable at a time. Like if playing that pattern is too complicated, don't play it. Just blow air and move your fingers. If that's too complicated, say the notes. Remove one variable, get good at one variable, add another variable, and so on, so on, so on. William, use compensating euphoniums. What euphoniums do you use? Yes, compensating euphoniums, Jupiter XO and John Packer 274S recently. That's the recent one in the videos. Mike is Yamaha 842S because he likes sticky valves. So that would be that. Where's the accent coming from? It's from Lithuania.
You have had more problems.
Never. What are you talking about?
You have more problems with your valves with those other brands that you're not playing on as much anymore. But than my Yamaha.
Guess why I'm not playing anymore.
Who had to borrow my Yamaha during an actual solo performance? Who? Tell me who. Who had to actually use my horn for a solo performance?
How are you asking me? How would I know?
Because you had to borrow my horn. Never. When your valve didn't work.
I just did a double flip, grabbed your phone and just give this, and just went back to the performance and played the cadenza. I had so many of it's not even sticky valve, it's just broken valve. Oh, yeah. Bad memories. It's good that I have a very good sense of humor. So normally people panic once the valves break during a solo in a packed theater in front of a band. I just laugh. I grab Mike's horn, and people know me. People used to know me as Algirdas valve breaker Matonizz. So my valves would break every other performance, so it became a running joke. Up until I changed the instrument. Who's laughing now? So that's what you get for making bad quality valve guides. Either way. That being said, Ellen is saying, since you're from Lithuania, have you heard of Mira Gražinytė Tyra, or how you pronounce it? That's how you pronounce it. She's a conductor. Absolutely, yes. The most famous conductor from Lithuania, touring across America. She actually visited Pittsburgh and conducted the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. Actually, when she was 6, or I might be making this one up, but for some reason that's what's sitting in my head. She might have been 6 or 7 months pregnant as well, so that was impressive. She was touring. She was very busy artist and fantastic conductor, and one of the most famous and accomplished classical music. It's not necessarily a musician conductor, but a person who's within a classical music field. So yes, I do know who she is. More questions. What is a POG? Is somebody catching me? Do you know what's a POG?
I don't know that a POG was a candy, but back whenever I was a young kid, they had this game where you would collect POGs and play a game called POGs. They were like little pieces of cardboard circles where it's not like jacks in any way, but it sort of reminds me a little bit of jacks, the way that you play it. But I know of POG as a game and not a candy, though.
How did you become so good at euphonium? I'm in high school. I currently use Yamaha Neo compensated valve, no trigger. Practice. Consistency. Practice. Man, I wish I could give more interesting answer, but I would be lying. Like my answer was the secret play well pill.
Practice.
We make those in Lithuania. It looks like a small little potato, like a russet potato. Just peel it, take it. It's called the play well pill. But
if you notice that towel that I hold on to whenever I play, in videos,
I touch it because it has magical powers.
It does. That gives me the playing abilities. Every playing ability that I have is from that magical, mystical towel.
But with all seriousness, practice, and I don't think people realize, and sometimes you hear these stories about people practicing for hours and hours. I used to when I was in school and I was sitting in my last couple lessons, all I could think of is as soon as I'm coming back, I'm gonna practice 6 or 7 hours. I used to practice sustained. I sustained 6-7 hour practice for years, not for years, for like over half a decade. I used to practice a lot, but when I decided that I wanna do this as a profession, around 13 or 14 years old, I would not take a day off from practicing 6-7 hours a day. Not recommending you necessarily do that, because that is a dumb idea, practicing that long. In fact, very dumb idea. I used to have bad scar tissue. It cost me a lot of trouble later on. But the attitude, consistently practice. That's what's gonna, perseverance and consistency. Every single day. Nowadays, Christmas, birthday, New Year's, Thanksgiving, you name it. I'm practicing that day no matter what. Unless I break my leg or I smash my teeth out or something, I would still probably practice that day. But consistency, and I know it's not, again, not the most thrilling answer, but it's the most honest and the most truthful answer.
You're not going to get better at anything in life unless you put enough time into getting better. So that's just the bottom line. There's really no shortcuts to anything. It's always hard work and dedication and determination, like you said.
Okay, shout out to Brazil. Shout out to
Brazil. Oh, we forgot Brazil from the very beginning. Brazil. I am so sorry. We forgot to say hi to you at the beginning. Hello, Brazil.
Okay, we're gonna answer a couple more questions, and then we're gonna wrap this up. So again, thanks to everyone who tuned in, and thanks a lot for that 25,000 subscriber mark. We really appreciate that. So thanks to all the patrons who are consistently supporting the channel. I could not be more grateful, especially at this time. This is becoming my full-time job at this point. It's probably gonna last like that for a little bit. So hopefully you've been enjoying the content, and thanks a lot to Mike as well. He's taking a time out of his day to do this, and I know we kind of popularized a little bit of this band playing as a section, because all the little pranks and all the good playing as well. It's fascinating. It's with all the I've played with a variety of players. I could not have imagined a better second chair player. Not only in terms of the playing atmosphere, but as well as getting along and being on the same page. So it's been a journey. And we're gonna continue that journey through online stuff a lot. We've been setting up an infrastructure to keep on doing these arrangements and educational videos. And I'm trying to get Mike to do some of the educational content, because he's got a lot of expertise, especially in a lot of these questions. I have a very unique approach. It's highly academic, highly detailed, but not necessarily always best for a beginner or maybe with some of the other questions. So I feel like I'll get Mike to do some of those videos to complement a lot of the educational stuff that is out. But thanks to everyone who's been such a big support to this channel and to our activities. We're honestly grateful with all the nice comments and all the thumbs up that you give every single time we post this video. So a lot of them will be coming up in the future, whether it's in live performance segments or more of these arrangements or other performances. So a couple more questions, and we're going to wrap this up, because I always plan to keep this around an hour long, and never always ends up being an hour and a half. What exercises would you recommend for getting back into shape after a couple months off not playing? Is coming from Ian. I'm the worst person to be asked that question. I promise you I'm not lying. The last time I took more than a couple of days off was in my early teens. So I never take time off. So I wouldn't even.
I'll mention a couple of things. Just the basics of playing. And as soon as you asked me that question just here right now, or you broadcast that question, just what are the basics of playing? What comes to my mind is practicing long tones. Making sure that your tone is getting back into shape, that your breathing is under control. Long tones are great, is a great vehicle to use to do things like that. Then I think about lip flexibility, how much has the flexibility of my lips suffered after all that time of not playing. So you think of lip slurs and things like that. What's funny? What do you?
I just found I'll read that. I found a funny comment. Never mind. Keep on. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just.
Okay. I didn't know what was happening. I can't see the comments because they're like teeny tiny on the screen here because I'm looking through your screen. But anyway, you just think about the basics of long tones and your tone quality, your lip flexibility by doing lip slurs, also scale studies. Keep it simple. You don't want to get too crazy, especially if you have taken a great amount of time off. And also do it in sort of sections. Start off by a little bit. Start to build those lips back into shape. Take a small amount of practice time and then take a break. Then come back and work a little bit more. It's just reintroducing yourself and getting your body back into condition to get to where you previously were. So think about the basics.
I double that. Now, the comment I was laughing at it. Somebody said, Baritosity saying, I believe a magic towel more than something like Lafrec plates. Do you know what's a Lafrec plates?
I don't think. If I saw it, I don't.
It's just like a little piece of metal,
a
little piece of metal that you put on your euphonium that's supposed to strengthen your sound. But if you don't know, you wouldn't understand. But
no, I've never heard of that in my entire life. It sounds like, is that a real thing?
Yeah, I'm not making this up. It's just
is it like
they have these little metal plates. So a little backstory for that's gonna be the last one I'm bringing. Somebody check saying at least the towel is priced well. So these are these little metal plates. They give you a set of 4 or 5 that are like $200 or something ridiculous. Now let me give you a little backstory. I guess at this time I'm not gonna get into much trouble by giving you a little bit of a backstory for that. So I was with the person. I'm not gonna mention the name when this thing was being developed. So it originally started in Japan. One of the most, again, not going to mention the names, most famous Japanese euphonium player met one of this very famous European player. And the European player noticed that there was some sort of a weird pieces of metal, just a little strip of metal added with a rubber band just to keep it around the pipes. And he was like, why are you using those plates? And apparently they were doing this research where it cancels out vibrations. Not cancels, but there's your instrument euphonium, the way it's designed, it leaks vibration. So if you put some extra metaling in there, it's supposed to remove and make the sound stronger. Now, this is not a fake stuff. Now, how much it impacts the playing, I cannot tell you. What I can tell you, it was a running joke. Even that professor, the European player who ended up being a huge representative of those Lafrec plates, he bought all the students from like these cheap, like couple of dollars worth of metal strips that you basically just need to know where to put them on. But it does not have to be these expensive $200 plates. You can buy them for a couple bucks and just put it with a Mike is reconnecting. Oh no, I'm hoping he's reconnecting. Either way, I'm gonna continue with the story. Mike, you here? You're back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm back. Maybe it's yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. That's fine.
Maybe it's this plate manufacturer is here, and you talk about this.
Just hacking up,
causing issues.
But here's the deal. You can buy as long as you know where to put them on. And at this point, I'm pretty sure there's tutorials. You can buy these steel plates and just put it with a couple of bucks. And a lot of instruments started putting some additional additional brass in those areas. I believe Adams does that. So does it work? Yes. How much does it work? Does it make your sound? It's not supposed to make your sound prettier. It's supposed to make your sound stronger on certain notes, especially a couple of notes that are off-centered. We're talking about those high Bs. high concert Bs or treble C sharps or A flats or G flats in the concert pitch. It's supposed to make strong.
That's just like mouthpieces. I never like to go down that mouthpiece hole with just getting 50,000 different mouthpieces to do one thing or another. It just seems like a slippery slope.
But here's the deal. With the mouthpiece, if I grab this, let's say it's $10, this $250, I can tell clear difference, huge difference. If I put those plates, let's say $200, I'm making this press up, but it's very high. I don't know exactly what's the price. I'm not exactly sure what I can feel. Maybe. I'm not saying no. I've tried them. I'm not going to say no. I think maybe a little bit of difference, but here's the deal. This is a $300 difference or like $200 difference. This, tell me which one is going to impact your sound, your power, your clarity more. So if you're about to invest money into something, I would replace this into this. I know Mike would, he would probably just grab anything. Like he'll grab a straw, plug it in.
I would take that one and just put it in whatever horn, no matter how broken it is or whatever, and just do what I gotta do.
So normally I've been trying to stay away a little bit from review unless I'm reviewing something I really believe at. So just because I don't need like any additional trouble, but you probably got the idea about my recommendation. I'm not gonna say no. If you've got like, if you got like a money printing machine, go ahead with that. But unless if you're one of the persons who likes to take a lighter and set their money on fire, I would recommend you buying those plates. Otherwise, I would spend that $200 and buy like a year worth of M&M stock. That's what I would do.
You should take the money and do a subscription to Matonizz Patreon with that.
Yeah, that's what you should do. You'll get some practice exercises, arrangements, stuff that will actually make you sound better. So with that being said, thanks to everyone for all the subscriptions, for all the love, for all the likes. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed this little live stream. I know there was no 25,000 subscriber cake. Maybe we'll bring that at some point when we hit 50,000 subscribers. But thanks to everyone who tuned in today. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you with the upcoming stream, hopefully next week. So stay well and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.